Hi, I'm Matt, here in Michigan.
And I'm Randall here in Texas. Today, Matt and I are doing an episode of the Call Up. This is episode 8. We have a whole playlist of call ups where we kind of just talk about subjects that we want to talk about. Today, we're going to be talking all about the new Star Wars TV series that were announced during the Disney Investors meeting. We kind of wanted a little bit more time to pass to get a little bit more information than what was just given there. And we do have a little bit more, but not a ton. So hang in there while we basically geek out about Star Wars a little bit. Matt, there's going to be 10 series all airing within the next few years. But really, I think that the one that everyone is really talking about, or the ones, I would say, is the Filoni-Verse, and that's where I want to start. What are your thoughts on that?
I like that idea. It's kind of interesting. I kind of draw it a little bit to when we had the Netflix Marvel series. We had kind of like, Daredevil and Jessica Jones and stuff all going at the same time. And I actually enjoyed those, though I admit after they kept adding more and more to it, it kind of spun out a little bit. But it's interesting that we have both Filoni and Favreau attached to these. To me, that gives me hope for that, because we always talk about, hey, we want kind of like our own like Filoni trilogy and stuff, and this is our closest that we're going to get to that right now. Maybe we'll get a Filoni trilogy down the line when it comes to movies.
If you're not up and up on everything, the Filoni-Verse, as people have kind of colloquially come to call it, is obviously The Mandalorian. Then you have the Book of Boba Fett. You have the upcoming Ahsoka starring Rosario Dawson, who's reprising her role from The Mandalorian. And you have a very kind of nebulous one, the Rangers of the New Republic, which is coming out. We don't know very much about Rangers. We kind of have some story beats about what might be going on with the other ones. We don't know much about the Rangers. So I'm interested in the Filoni stuff the most, because it's pretty clear from everything he's done, from Clone Wars to Rebels to The Mandalorian, that he's definitely got a plan for how he wants to take Star Wars and what he wants to do with it. And I'm not 100% sure that all of the other series are within his creative confines, or he has final say over them, because they have different creators. And so right now, for me, the Filoni-Verse is where it's at, because I actually expect it to make sense.
Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting, because I think Filoni probably will more be on kind of like the Ahsoka show. I'm guessing that's going to be a lot of focus, because that's, him and George Lucas's character, Ahsoka. And then I'm wondering if Rangers of the New Republic is going to be more of like a Favreau, focus show and stuff too. I wonder, though, if we're doing the Mandalorian again, which could come out, like we said, 2022, how much Favreau and Filoni are going to directly be, doing the date. Like, Favreau has written almost all the episodes of The Mandalorian, the first 2 seasons. I wonder if that's still going to be the case going forward, or if he's going to be focusing more on Rangers of the New Republic. Also, Book of Boba is also Filoni and Favreau attached too, but they brought in director Robert Rodriguez for this, and it's kind of interesting because he actually directed my least favorite episode, but he just wanted to show off, Boba Fett, and now he's actually got a whole series to kind of like show off Boba Fett. But it's kind of interesting. I wonder how long these are gonna go. Like, are these gonna be continuing series, or are these gonna be shorter series? And I think that will be a big telling of how these shows are gonna go.
That definitely gets into a topic that I want to talk about, because there are a couple of series on here which are what Disney's calling event series, what the rest of the world calls miniseries, which is Obi-Wan and Lando. So we know that both Obi-Wan and Lando are slated to be basically like, here's a story, and then we're done. We don't know how many episodes exactly for each of them, but I like that idea. I think that that's a really good thing. Star Wars probably lends itself better to the long-form storytelling of an anthology almost. Like, hey, here's something that we can't like spin out into their own major movies, 3 Obi-Wan movies, but we can do 10 episodes or something and tell a story of that. And I'm really excited for the parts of the canon that at least Obi-Wan is going to explore. About 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, we don't really know too much about Disney canon at that point. That's an interesting show to me, and an interesting concept, rather than oh my god, every year I have to come back and watch a new show just to keep up with what's going on with this show because there's going to be a crossover with this show like the DC verse did, you know?
I think these shows, in particular, were originally probably slated like movies. That's a time when Disney's kind of Star Wars plan was, all right, well, we're gonna have our main, Skywalker saga movie like every other year, and then our in between years we'll have these spin-off movies, whether it be like a Rogue One or a Solo, and then like an Obi-Wan Kenobi or like a Boba Fett movie. And then these, I think, got changed into shows after Disney had poor performances with Solo. They realized that having a Star Wars movie every year probably doesn't work, and that maybe having shows will definitely go better, at least according to Disney's mind. So it'll be interested to see if these really catch on and stuff too. And another movie that's or a show that's kind of like that, but not, we've known it's going to be a show for a while, is Andor as well. I mean, I really liked Rogue One, but I don't know if I really want to see that series as much, because I feel like the ground of like pre A New Hope kind of already covered with Star Wars Rebels.
I mean, yes and no. So Andor's an interesting one too because it's slated to take place 5 years before Rogue One, and Rogue One obviously butts right up to A New Hope. That gives them no more than 5 or 6 seasons, if it's even going to be that kind of show, to tell whatever story they're going to tell. But it is kind of a building of the Rebels from a different perspective than what you saw in Star Wars Rebels, the animated show. At least that's the way I understand it. But what really excites me about Andor is the teaser trailer that they showed at the investors meeting. Is it's probably going to be one of the bigger budget shows. This is going to be on the scale of a movie, with its special effects, with its practical effects, with its production values, and that in particular excites me because you can see, even though Mandalorian is pretty well done, where the cast is quite contained, the sets are quite contained, where they don't quite have the same budget. I think Andor, from all looks, is supposed to be really big budgeted.
One thing I like about these live action shows is not just, we talked about Favreau and Filoni, but the actors that are also attached to these shows. So like Obi-Wan, we have both Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen attached to that. I think that's excellent. Andor, we have Diego Luna and Alan Tudyk reprising their roles. I think that's awesome. Rosario Dawson, she's going to continue her character Ahsoka in the Ahsoka show. So that's another little added thing that I really like about these live actions. Another one that we haven't really talked about yet, the Acolyte. Now this is kind of what we've heard about is this mystery thriller, whatever, that takes place before the prequels, like hundreds of years before the prequels, during the High Republic. And this might be connected to like the books and the comics coming out, which I think there's a little bit of a discussion we can have about that too. But one thing I like is that Leslye Headland is attached to this as the showrunner and co-creator. She's one of the co-creators of Russian Doll, a series on Netflix. So that's another thing that I think Disney's doing a good job of attaching, I wouldn't say necessarily all big names, but, well-respected people to these projects that give me a lot of hope for these shows.
Yeah, Disney might have maybe learned their lesson, I guess. Don't give all your movies to, like, newbie up-and-comer directors. Give them to established show creators. Not saying anything about Solo, not saying anything about Solo at all. Didn't need to be reshot most of the entire movie. Anyways, the Acolyte is interesting to me because I'm always been interested in like all of the old history of Star Wars. A lot of it was explained in the previous expanded universe, which is now Legends, Star Wars Legends. So it's almost completely unexplored in Disney, except for their upcoming like comic tie-ins, which, no, not a fan of that. Put it on screen or else I don't care about it. It's not that I don't care about comics, it's that I don't care to have to read a comic to know what the heck's going on. One of the things that does bother me is this: they say hundreds of years nebulously before the Phantom Menace. And what I've seen of the art of the High Republic comics, man, a lot's changed in 100 years. Or a few hundred years. But in general, the Star Wars universe doesn't really change that much through hundreds of years. It's a very not necessarily completely stagnant, but not like Star Trek where it's like, oh yeah, new ships all the time and everything. No, not like that. So I'm really interested in the art direction that they're going to take the Accolade, and again, just the time period that they're exploring, because they can do anything they want then, pretty much. It doesn't have to tie in with anything that's going on. It could just be a side story.
I think we've been asking for something like the Acolyte for a while because everything's been real close to, pretty much like the established Star Wars, Skywalker saga, minus like the video games and the books and stuff. That's the only stuff that really went into this other realm, expanding, Star Wars and stuff. So that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to the Acolyte. But yeah, I'm a little worried that I hope it doesn't take too much from like the books and comics. It's like, hey, you got to consume all this media or whatever, these mediums to get the full story or whatever. It's good if it's kind of like, hey, if you want to learn more, go check out these other things, but you don't really need to on the show. Some other ones that we got to, like we were talking about Filoni, the Filoni-Verse or whatever, another show that he's attached to, which I kind of see as an extension of Clone Wars, The Bad Batch. Honestly, to tell you the truth, after watching like the trailer reveals, this might be the one I'm most excited for. Looking into this time period right after Order 66 and what other impacts it has after, the Jedi are, kind of gone, even though we know there's some straggler Jedi out there. I'm really excited about this one.
So I'm also excited, but it's a weird excitement. It's the same reason I'm excited about the Accolade, because so much of this time period is nebulous in between the end of the prequel trilogy and A New Hope. I'm happy that they're filling those holds in, because George Lucas, when he made his originals, despite what people think, didn't really think through very much of the backstory. But I'm happy that it's being filled in. I really am. And the Bad Batch is interesting to me because I don't know, given from what I've seen from the trailer, if they are also, like, if they have the same chips and if they were also imbued with the same shortcomings or handicaps as the normal clones, because they're obviously not normal clones. And I don't know if I'm expecting them to be good guys. I don't know if there's going to be like a protagonist. That's what's interesting to me, is the unknowns about the Bad Batch. And I hope they stay unknowns until the series actually goes, because I want to discover for myself. I don't want to be told and find out on the internet, like, okay, so are these good clones now? Are they bad clones? Do they realize like the usurpingness of the Empire or not? I want those questions to be what they explore, hopefully.
One thing I think is interesting about the Bad Batch is that we have Fennec, the character Fennec, in the Bad Batch 2, which is kind of interesting. It's a character we only saw like one episode in season 1 of The Mandalorian, but then had a much bigger role in the second season of The Mandalorian, and she's going to be a prominent character in the Book of Boba. So it's kind of interesting how, Fennec is becoming this, bigger character in Star Wars. So I think it's kind of interesting that, that's kind of our connection between, I guess, our Filoni-Verse different shows with like the Bad Batch and stuff.
So Fennec being in there is really interesting, because back to my term of, I don't know if there's going to be even a good person in this film. This series, she's not billed as a good person, really, She's a kind of a bounty hunter, roguish character. And if she's still doing that by the time, after Return of the Jedi, there's no reason to believe that she's a good character in the time of Revenge of the Sith,
And then also kind of going on like animated. So I also heard about 2 other animated, and we at first were like, all right, shows, but now we've learned a little bit more that they might not technically be shows. So we're talking about Star Wars Visions, which we found out is going to be an anime anthology of like 10 short films that's supposed to come out this year in 2021. Think of kind of like the Animatrix when it comes to that. And we also have a Droid story, which actually probably isn't going to be a show at all. It sounds like it's more going to be like an animated like movie that contains R2-D2 and C-3PO. It's kind of weird. All we've really heard is that it's supposed to be like cutting edge somehow, a collaboration between Lucas Animation and ILM. So be interested to see these as well, to see what these actually turn into.
Well, I'll tell you what. Visions seems interesting to me. The droid story can take it up the hoo-ha. I'm not interested in watching anything that's just R2D2 and C3PO. In Rebels, which I never fully watched, I couldn't get past the first episode having to do with R2D2 and C3PO. I was like, I don't want this. I just don't. I realize the series progresses beyond that, but Visions is interesting to me, though. In fact, you said Animatrix, which is probably the best thing. There's also like Halo Legends, which is also a really good comparison. But I think back to the 2003 Clone Wars, that like the one done by the creator of Samurai Jack. That one to me was like, here's these little disparate episodes. Yeah, we're kind of trying to tell one story, and it kind of all comes together. But each individual episode was just this awesomeness into and of itself. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, although, albeit this is supposed to be from 10 episodes from different arts, different directors, different creators, instead of just one. So that it'll be really interesting to see that. And we're expecting that this year, 2021. That might be one of the first things we actually see of all of these shows that we're discussing.
So we've gone through like all of these, and like you said, even when you were saying in one of our previous videos that there's like 10, I'm kind of thinking like, wow, is there really 10? I mean, I guess 11 if you count the third season of The Mandalorian in there. But then when looking into it, talking about, Visions and a droid story, some of them are a little bit different. I'm trying to think of like, well, how many shows do we normally have with like Star Wars? So a lot of times, we'd have some like animated stories going on, like you said, we've had Rebels, we've had Clone Wars, we've had Resistance. They've kind of gone back to back to back a little bit, and then we've also had these kind of like animated shorts and like kids shows. I mean, we talked about like Star Wars in Lego form, and like redone animation of the Star Wars shows on like YouTube. So I'm really looking at this more as kind of like, all right, so Disney is really looking at Disney Plus as this one hub to put out all of our Star Wars stuff, as opposed to putting some out in theaters and putting some out on the Disney Channel, and then putting other stuff on Disney's YouTube thing. So really, depending when we nail down some of these other release dates, like Lando, we really don't know much of anything about Lando, and that might not be something that's it might be off in the distance. So to me, it's kind of like hard to gauge if this is like a lot or too much all at once until we really like nail down like dates for those other releases.
So that is interesting, because even Obi-Wan's only like just going into production right now, like filming. So you don't expect to see Obi-Wan until 2022 or 2023 maybe. So initially I thought, wow, this is a lot. And this is too much all at once. This is just going to I won't be able to keep up with that, But when you start talking about it like we are, you start thinking, well, you know what? It seems like they are going to spread this out. You're not going to have to watch them all at the same time. They're not going to, they're staggering the release schedule, at least so it seems. Now, we don't know that for a fact, but given what they're doing, it seems likely that that's what they're doing. Now, one of the things for me that I definitely need to get off my shoulder is like a lot of the Filoni stuff that I'm most looking forward to is filling in the questions and the backstories that J.J. Abrams didn't answer in Episode 7. The state of the Star Wars universe after Episode 6, after Return of the Jedi. What happened? What is the New Republic doing? Why aren't they fighting the Resistance? Or not Resistance, the First Order. What is the Resistance even? Like, I want to start seeing some of the build-up to that kind of stuff, because the state of the galaxy in Episode 7 is one of my biggest detractors of that film, where I'm like, God, that sucks. So if I have to pick stuff that I'm looking most forward to, it's still the Filoni and Favreau stuff that's going to talk about after Return of the Jedi, before Force Awakens.
Yeah, I think we already saw some, kind of like hinting and precursors of that in this, especially season 2 of The Mandalorian, where they're not coming out and saying it, but if you kind of like read between the lines and know a bit about Star Wars, you're kind of like, I wonder if they are hinting at that. And I wonder if we're going to get like a lot from Rangers of the New Republic. That's part of that Filoni-Verse, if that is going to be another thing that really shows us more into that or sets up to that. So I definitely think that, yes, we got this long time period between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. I wonder how far that these new shows, these Filoni-Verse shows, are going to go into exploring that to kind of fill in all those gaps.
Yeah, I mean, you have this mystery character in Max von Sydow, rest in peace, who was in Episode 7, and you're just like, well, what's he doing there and why? And I don't understand anything about his character and what he knows about Luke. That's it, There is so much to be mined in that particular section of canon. Some of these other shows are interesting, but they do a lot of stuff that's already kind of been explored in other shows like Rebels, for example, you said, instead of Andor. Like, well, how much more do we have to talk about? Well, in between episode 6 and 7, there's a lot to talk about still.
I think that these shows and all these Star Wars shows, that you don't necessarily have to consume them all. I'm hoping it's going to be like different things for like different Star Wars fans. I think people who want to be in like the Filoni-Verse stuff, I mean, maybe there you have to watch like 3-4 shows, and then also maybe the Bad Batch on top of it, because we kind of noticed that a little bit too. I mean, that's one thing we talked about in our review of season 2 of The Mandalorian. It's good on its own, but you get a lot more if you watch like Rebels and Clone Wars. Filoni definitely did a lot of tie-ins to his other stuff, but I'm wondering if stuff kind of like like the Acolyte and stuff, if that's completely devoid. It's in Star Wars, but it doesn't really have much to do with any of the other storylines. I think that would be good for like fans that just want to see, just certain elements and not have to watch everything.
That's until you figure out that the Acolyte's Yoda. Okay? And then all of a sudden you're like, well, darn it, they couldn't just give me a standalone story, could they? Because it's like, okay, all right, it's taking place a few hundred years before Phantom Menace. How old is Yoda in Phantom Menace? 800. Oh, okay then. The Acolyte's Yoda, calling it now. Insert God do I hate being right all the time meme here.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
See, we had kind of like a baby Yoda character in The Mandalorian. Even though it's not Yoda, it's a totally different character, but now we're going to see, like middle-aged Yoda in The Acolyte.
I mean, could you imagine middle-aged Yoda, though?
Yoda in his prime.
But is he, though? Like, what is the prime for that species, even? It's a lot. I definitely think it's a lot, but I'm hopeful that Disney's kind of learned a bit from their time-making movies, the Star Wars movies, that don't rush it, have a story. If you're going to try and connect all of it, definitely have a plan, for God's sakes. So I am looking forward to it, and little crumbs will sneak out here and there, but I definitely hope that those crumbs don't sneak out about the Bad Batch.
Oh yeah, it's kind of hard to keep Star Wars spoilers under wraps, especially we noticed that with season 2 of The Mandalorian. But yes, I'm definitely looking forward to a lot of these different things. What a good time, I guess, to be a Star Wars fan, or to get into Star Wars for sure.
Is it though? We don't know yet, but maybe.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Definitely, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to be wanting to get that Disney Plus, if you haven't already, to watch The Mandalorian.
Ooh, I know what you're getting at. We're going to do a call-up episode about our 1 year later Disney Plus.
Be sure to check that out when that comes out. What do you guys think about all these Star Wars shows? Is there elements or whatever you think Randall and I left out that we should look more into? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this review or this call-up discussion, give us a thumbs up. Also, hit subscribe and ring that bell to get notified about other videos. We release new videos every Monday and Thursday. We also have a Facebook page. There we'll post a day before videos come out to let you know the topic of the next video. For now, I'm Matt here in Michigan. Have a good day.
And I'm Randall here in Texas. Let me know down in the comments below which one of these Star Wars shows you're looking the most forward to. And I will see you guys all in the next one.
Next time on No Market Media. please consider checking out some of our other videos.